Welcome to another video in the SAP S/4HANA Fixed Assets playlist. In the last video, I explained the intercompany fixed asset transfer process and the accounting entries. In the video today, I will demonstrate on SAP S/4HANA 2021 the needed configuration to set up the automatic intercompany fixed asset transfer, and also I will run an end-to-end process, so this way we can see the impact of the configuration we do. I will do this demo on SAP S/4HANA 2021, and please pay attention to the version, because starting from S/4HANA 2022 there are many updates, but so far I still don't have access to an S/4HANA 2022 system. So the best I can do for now is to show you the process on SAP S/4HANA 2021. This is the first video I record after we get to 50,000 subscribers on the channel. I want to thank everyone who supported the channel over the last 4 years, especially the channel members who are paying to support this content. I would have never continued creating videos without your support. So thanks a lot for being a part of this journey, and we only have 50,000 more remaining to get to 100,000. So let's see how long this will take. I will start by showing you the process first. So I will show you the transaction that we use to perform the intercompany asset transfer, and then I will show you the configuration. So this way we can understand the front end, how the transaction works, and then when we do the configuration, we can see the impact of whatever we change on the transaction. So first, to go to the intercompany fixed asset transfer transaction for the automatic process, we go to accounting, financial accounting, fixed assets, posting, transfer, intercompany asset transfer, ABT1N. First, here we have the company code. So this is the company code that will be the source of the asset. So I am transferring the asset from this company code to another one. And here we have the asset number that we will transfer. So this is the asset I will use today. Let me show you the values of this asset on the right screen here. So let's go to AS03 to display the asset values. Here is our asset, and then click on asset values. So this asset has been acquisitioned in 01/01/2023, so current year acquisition for 48,000. And then I already transferred a part of the value of this asset, 5,000. If we go to posted values, here we can see we also have some depreciation posted. So this way we can see the accumulated depreciation when we do the transfer. So this is my asset. Now let's go back to the left screen. And here I will insert the transfer date. So this will be as of 01/06/2023. Posting date is the same, and asset value date is also the same. And here I can either choose that I want to do the transfer without any revenue, or against manual revenue, or revenue from net book value. If I choose revenue from net book value, then SAP will calculate automatically the revenue that will be received to be exactly equal to the net book value of the asset. So it is actually the same option as manual revenue, but SAP will calculate the amount automatically. So now I will process the transaction without any revenues. And here I have the intercompany transfer to. Here I will insert the company code that will receive the asset. So I am transferring to company code AG30. And then here I can insert the asset number if we already have an asset that will receive the values. If not, I can click on new asset and then click on master data. And here we can create the asset right now. So we have the asset class 2000, and I can change this. The company code is AG30, and then the reference is the sending asset. And here we have some values already filled, and these values came from the sending asset. So here, as you see, the description of the sending asset is intercompany asset transfer test. This was automatically copied, also the description too, and the inventory number. So this is part of the configuration that I will show you today. How can we select the fields that we want them to be copied by default to the new asset. And then if we want to fill the other fields, we can click on additional data. But first I will insert the cost center. And then click on additional data, and here we have all the fields that we need to fill. Then go back. Now once we save this transaction, SAP will automatically create the asset. Now let's go to the second screen, additional data. Here is a very important field, the transfer variant. I already explained in the last video what is this. So this is the configuration object that maps the transfer method with the relationship type, the movement type, and I will show you this in the configuration today. So now we have the transfer variant 1, which is gross method. If we open here, we also have net method and revaluation method. So this covers the 3 methods I explained in the last video, the gross one, the net, and the new value method. I already explained what they mean and the accounting entries in the last video, so I will not waste your time by re-explaining this. If you have any questions, you can go back to the last video. So these are the three methods here. I will choose gross method, and then I can also go to partial transfer. If we want to partially transfer a part of the asset, I can choose here either the amount from the acquisition cost. So for example, if the asset has an acquisition cost of 50,000, I can say I want to transfer 10,000, or I can also insert a percentage. So I can say I want to transfer 50% of the asset. And then here we have to choose either prior year acquisition or current year acquisition. As you see, this asset has been acquisitioned this year, so I will choose current year acquisition. But in case we have several acquisitions that happened to the asset, so for example, we acquisitioned the asset originally last year and then we added other acquisition this year, when we do the transfer, we have to specify whether it is from prior year or current year. So now I will choose current year acquisition and then go back to transaction data. So these are all the inputs we need. Now I will click on simulate. I have not used this button yet in the playlist, so the simulate button will actually show you the actual result that will happen if we post the transaction, but without posting anything. So this way we can use exactly the same asset again and again to see the different scenarios without posting anything to the system. So now I will click on simulate, and here first, as you see, we have errors occurred, see error log, and then here we have only one financial entry that is posted to AG20, and we cannot see the entry that will be posted to AG30 because there is an error. To see the error, click on here. The error is data inconsistency, no revenue entered. If you open the long text, you try to post a retirement, you enter transaction type 301 in which retirement with revenue indicator is set. So in the transfer variant, we have a transaction type. The transaction type determines whether this is a retirement with revenue or without. And according to the transaction type, this should be a retirement with revenue. So SAP is expecting to find a revenue in the transaction. And because there is no revenue, the transaction failed. So now let's exit this, close this also, and let's go back. So if I want this to pass, I can go to manual revenue and click insert here 1000. And I will explain to you more why we have this error when we go to the configuration. But for now, I want to show you the process end to end. So I inserted a manual revenue of 1000 and then go again to simulate. Now the process is working fine. We don't have an error here. And if you check, we have two company codes. We have two entries, one entry in each company code. So this is the sending company code and the receiving company code. And then here we have the financial entry. This is exactly what I explained in the video, in the last video, in the presentation here. So these are the accounting entries I explained, and we can see them. We can see this is exactly the entry we have. So if we look here on SAP, first line we have is a credit to the asset acquisition cost. Second line is a debit to the accumulated depreciation. This is 50% of the value of the asset because we are transferring only 50%. And then we have a credit to a debit to the clearing affiliated asset transfer. So this is the amount that we received as a revenue. This is the one we have here, affiliate clearing. And then the last one is lost from asset transaction because the net book value of the asset is higher than the amount we received. So the remaining is a loss. So this is the accounting entry. And as you see here, there is also the transaction type of the asset. This is important because if something is not going right with the transaction, we can always check the configuration of the transaction type to see what's wrong. And this is coming from the transfer variant. I will show you this in the configuration. And then we have the entry of the receiving company code. If we go here, this is exactly similar to what we have here in the presentation. Also, so the other side of the presentation. So here we have a debit to the asset acquisition cost, credit to accumulated depreciation, and the credit to acquisition clearing. If we check on SAP, so we have the debit to the asset for 21,500. This is exactly the same value that was transferred from the other company code. We have the accumulated depreciation credit, again the same value, and the difference is posted to clearing asset acquisition. So this is the accounting entry for gross transfer method. And as you see, the gross transfer method is actually only impacting the receiving side, as I explained. The sending side will always be the same. On the sending side, we are going to write off the accumulated depreciation and the asset regardless of the transfer method being used. So this is the first case. Now let's go back. And for the second case, I will go to the additional details and I will change this to transfer variant 2 net method, and then let's simulate again. So the entry on the sending side again is exactly the same. There are no changes here. But on the receiving side, now we have a different entry. Instead of having 3 lines, 1 line for the asset, 1 for accumulated depreciation, and a third for the clearing account, now we have only 2 lines because we are using the net method. So SAP will post the net book value directly to the asset acquisition, and this value will be cleared against the clearing asset acquisition. This is the entry explained here. So we have 2 lines, asset acquisition cost and the credit to acquisition clearing. So this is the net method. Now let's check the third one, the new value method. So go back and here change the transfer variant to 3, revaluation method, and then simulate again. And here we have again on the sending side the same accounting entry, but on the receiving side we have the value of 1000, which is the amount that the receiving company paid to get this asset. So this is the new value method, and this is what we have here. So if we go to the presentation, the net method, here we have the net method. If we go again, here we have the new value method. So asset acquisition cost, debit for the revenue amount, and the credit to acquisition clearing for the revenue amount. And this is what we have here. So these are the 3 cases we have for the different transfer methods. Now let's go to the configuration and see how this was actually set up. Now to go to the configuration for intercompany asset transfer, let me remove this presentation, and then I will use the screen on the left. So let's go back here and let's go to configuration /n SPRO. All the steps that I will show you now have already been added to the configuration manual that is available to the elite members. We have a library on Google Drive where I share the different presentations and the configuration manuals with the elite members. And this already has all the configuration steps I will show you today, and also it has extra notes on what values to use and the different business cases. So if you are an elite member, you can check it. If you are not yet an elite member, then you can join us. I will leave you a link here to join the channel. So if you decide to support the channel, you will actually be supporting me in creating more content, and you will also get access to these documents and also to the member videos. Now I will move this to the other screen here, and now let's go to the configuration. So here we have our configuration menu, and to go to the configuration of the intercompany asset transfer, go to financial accounting, asset accounting, and here we have transactions, transfer posting, intercompany asset transfers, automatic intercompany asset transfer, and here we have defined transfer variants. So these are the main 3 steps we need to do. So first we have check company ID of company codes, then we have a specify transfer of fields and define transfer variant. I will start by specify transfer of fields because this is an easy one. So if we go here, this is where we choose which fields we want to be copied to the new asset when we create it in the transaction of the asset transfer. So on the right screen here, if I go again to the asset transfer transaction, ABT1N, and as you remember here when we did the demo first, so let me choose some dates, and then here company code AG30 1. Now when I click on new asset and then click on master data, we already have some values here. So this was configured in this transaction. Now if I go here, as you see that the configuration is based on the variant, on the transfer variant. This is why if I choose here transfer variant 1 and then click on master data, it will copy. But if I go again here and choose 2, for example, and then go to transaction data, click on master data to create a new asset, we don't have any values here. Why? Because this setup is based on the transfer variant. So for the transfer variant 1, I have done some setup here. So choose the line and then go to logical fields, logical field groups. So in the general data here, I have selected description 1, description 2, and the asset main number text and inventory number to be copied. This is why when I insert the transfer variant 1 and then click on new asset here on master data, it will copy these fields. I can also choose to copy some fields from the depreciation areas. So here, for example, I can choose this line, go here, and then I can tell SAP to copy the useful life or any other fields in the depreciation areas. I can also tell SAP to copy any other fields from the master data itself. So these are the different groups available. Inside each group we have different fields, and we can choose what we want to copy. Now if I go to the net method and go again to the same, you'll see that nothing is selected here. This is why if we go here and select net method, then go here and click on master data, nothing is copied. So this is an easy setup that we can do to make the life easier for anyone who is processing this transaction, to copy some fields from the sender asset, but you need to be careful not to copy anything sensitive. So for example, I wouldn't say copy the cost center or copy the useful life. These fields should be inserted manually to be sure that we insert them correctly. But anyway, it's up to you. Now let's go back. So this is the first configuration step. Now the second thing is define transfer variants. Or before, let me show you the check company ID of company codes. This is where we assign a company ID to each company code to decide whether the company codes will belong to the same group or not, and whether they will be one legal entity or not, as I explained in the last video. And this part can be confusing, so please be sure to watch the explanation I did in the last video first. Here I will go to the company code. So the first company code is AG20. This is the sending company code. And then here, if I go to the details, we can see the company field is AG20. So I have a company that's called AG20. This has nothing to do with the company code. I don't want to confuse you here. So I have defined a company with the same code as my company code, but I can change this to have any other company I want. So this AG20 is assigned to company AG20. And if I go to AG30, the receiving company code, it is assigned to a company called AGX0. So these two company codes are not assigned to the same company. This is why they are considered different legal entities from the point of view of the asset transfer. And because they are different legal entities, we can only process the transaction that includes revenue when we do the transfer. We cannot do a transfer without revenue because they are not one legal entity. And this is something that we can change, but this is the standard setup. I will show you this in a minute. So now we can see this is the relation between the two company codes. They are assigned to different companies. I can also assign them to the same company. So if I choose here AG20, this means they are both now assigned to the same company. So this is a flexible configuration. It depends on whether they actually belong to the same group or not. Now I will put it back to AGX0, or I will just cancel. I will not save anything. And let's go to the last step. Define transfer variants. So let's start with the gross method. So variant 1, 2, and 3. These are the three I used in my demo today. Now let's go to the gross method and go to maintain allowed entries. So first we have the relationship type. So if the relationship type is 1, which means that legally independent units, then this should be selected. And if the relationship is 2, so they are legally independent units, so they are legally 1 unit, sorry, then it should go to here. Now the two company codes, as we saw, they are assigned to different companies, so they are considered different legal entities or independent legal entities. So anything that we did in the demo was actually selecting the first relationship type 1. And then here we have the cross system depreciation area is asterisk, which means I'm not using this option. I will not go into the explanation of this part because it's not mandatory. I may add it in future videos. Then we have the description of the cross-system depreciation area. And then we have the transfer method, very important. So here we choose a transfer method, and if we open the values, we have the gross method, net method with adoption. So gross without adoption, net with adoption, new value with adoption, and the gross method with adoption of values. So these methods are fixed in SAP, and we cannot define or remove any of them. We can only assign them to our transfer variants. And we mainly use the first three. So this one is assigned to the gross method without adoption. So this is why when we process the transaction, SAP knows that this should use the gross method. And then here we have the retirement transaction type and the acquisition transaction type. This is also very important. So when we post this transaction, the retirement that will happen in the sending company code will be with the transaction type 230. And the acquisition in the receiving company code will be with the transaction type 153. But actually, if you were paying attention, you would find that these will not the transaction types that we saw in the entry. So if I process this again, so new asset, here, let me just insert some values quickly. So we are using the gross method, and then go here, manual revenue 1000, exactly the same example we did before, and then new asset, cost center is 1000, and then go to partial transfer, percentage is 50, and the current year acquisition. Now if we simulate this, you can see the transaction type in the for retirement is 275 in the sending company code, but here we have 230. So how did SAP bring this transaction type? If we go to the transaction type configuration of the asset, so let's go here, SAP RO. There is a transaction code, but let me show you where to find it. So again, go to financial accounting, asset accounting, and then here go to transactions, retirement, and define transaction types for retirements. Here we have the first one, and the transaction code for this screen is A074. Here we have the retirement without revenue. Now we are looking for transaction type 275 or 230. So what we have here assigned to the variant is 230. So let's go to 230 here. So this is the one we have in our configuration. Double click. And here if you check, we have acquisition in same year is 275. This is what we have in the transaction here. So now according to our configuration, we should use transaction type 230. But if the asset is acquisitioned in the same year, then the transaction type used should be 275. This is why this is the transaction type we have in our transaction. Now let's go back and go to this transaction type 275 here. Now as you see, we have retirement with revenue checked. This is why SAP expects to see a revenue in this transaction, and if there is no revenue, it will give an error. The second important thing is post to affiliated company. Now these two company codes are assigned to different companies. And from the point of view of the transaction types, if the two company codes are assigned to different companies, they are considered affiliate company codes, affiliate companies. But here there is a very important note, and please pay attention to this. If the two company codes are assigned to the same company, then they are considered as not affiliate companies. So it will be do not post to affiliate companies. But if one of the company codes is not assigned to a company and the other is assigned to a company, so one of them is assigned to a company and the other is not assigned, or if both of them are not assigned to companies, then again they are considered as not affiliate companies. So if the two company codes are assigned to the same company, or if the two company codes are not assigned to companies at all, or if one of them is not assigned to a company, then the two company codes are assigned as not affiliate companies. But if the two company codes are assigned to different companies, this is the only case where they are considered as affiliate company. As you see, this one is used to post to affiliate companies, and because our two company codes are assigned to different companies, they are considered affiliate companies, so we are good. Now we understand the transaction types and how this can impact our configuration. Let me put this back and we'll get back to it later. So now this is our transaction here. Now let's go back to our configuration on the left. And now, so we understand why SAP picked these transaction types, and we understand how SAP identified that we are using the transfer method, the gross transfer method, when we used the transfer variant 1. Now, if we change the relationship between the two companies, the two company codes, and we assign them to the same company, SAP should pick the second line. Now let's try this. So I will go back here and go to the first step, check company ID of company codes, and let's assign both of them to the same company. So AG30, I will assign AG30 to the company AG20, or let me assign AG20 to AGX0. AGX0. So now AG20 is assigned to AGX0 and AG30 is also assigned to AGX0. So they are considered as one legal entity. They are assigned to the same group. Now let's save and go back to our transaction here. I will restart the transaction to see the impact of our configuration. So /n ABT1N again, and insert again the values. Exactly the same values we did before. Manual revenue 1000. Additional details, gross method, partial transfer 50% from current year acquisition. And let's do a simulation. Now we are getting an error. We didn't have the error before, but now we are getting an error because we changed the relationship between the two companies, between the two company codes. Now let's go to the error. No depreciation area for receiving the revenue. So now it's saying that we cannot use revenue. So what happened? What changed? The transaction type. So now if you see here, the transaction type picked this time is 320. Why? Because if we go back here and go to define transfer variant, then go to the gross method, maintain allowed entry. Here in 2, we have that retirement type 300 and the acquisition type 310. And here we have 320. So this was picked the same way that happened in the last one, in the other one. So if we go here to the acquisition, to the retirement transaction types and look for transaction type 300, it's not here because it is a transfer transaction type. So let's go back and go out of retirement. We have acquisition, retirement, and transfer posting. So go to transfer posting. Here we have another transaction. Define transaction types for transfers. Go here, define transaction types for transfers, for retirement, and here we have 300. If we check this one, inside it says that if the acquisition is in the same year, then it should go to 320. And this is the transaction type we have here. So now what we need to do is check 320 here. And this one is saying that this is a credit transaction, so this is a retirement. And it is a transfer posting, so it does not accept revenues. And also we have do not post to affiliated company because the two company codes are assigned to the same company, so they are not affiliated companies. So this is correct. But now as you see, we cannot have a revenue in this posting. This is why we have this error. Now there is a question, what if we want to have revenues even if the two companies are assigned to the same, the two company codes are assigned to the same company? In this case, what you need to do is to change the transaction types assigned to in your configuration. So you can actually make this transaction very similar to the transaction when the two company codes are assigned to different companies. It all depends on your configuration. So now according to this configuration, we cannot have revenue. This is why we have this error. Now let's go back and remove the revenue, so no revenue, and then simulate. Now we don't have an error. And we have the transaction types here, so 320 for retirement and the 330 for the acquisition. So transfer retirement and transfer acquisition. And we have the different values. So in the sending side, this time there is no revenue. So in the sending side, we have a credit to the asset, debit to accumulated depreciation. The difference is to clearing asset acquisition. And on the receiving side, in the other company code, we have debit to the asset, credit to accumulated depreciation, and the difference to clearing asset acquisition. So this is similar to if the two company codes are actually one legal entity. It is very similar to the intra-company asset transfer. So this is the case when the two company codes are assigned to the same company. Now let's go back. Another important note is according to the standard SAP configuration, if we are doing a transfer between two company codes that are assigned to the same company, we should only use the gross method. We should not use the net or the new value methods, because there should be no revenue, so there is no new value, of course, and also we shouldn't use the net. This is the standard configuration, but again, it all depends on your setup and your business requirement. This means that if you go here to the standard configuration, and let's go back and go to the net method, so the net variant, we have only one line defined for relationship type 1. The two are independent legal units, but if you want to use the net method and at the same time have the two company codes assigned to the same company, then you can configure the relationship type 2 here. But again, this is not the standard SAP configuration, which means it is normally not the correct business requirement. So either the two are one legal unit, so they should use the gross method without revenue, or the two are different legal units, then in this case we can use revenue and we can use the net method or the new value method. So now this should be aligned with your business requirement. But at least now you understand how to change the system as you want to match any business requirement you have. So this is the configuration for intercompany asset transfer. And this is everything I want to cover in the video today. So again, all the configuration steps I just showed you are available in this configuration manual that's available to the elite members. If you would like to have access to this, then you need to join the channel as an elite member, and you will find the configuration steps and also some notes I add and some thoughts about the business process. Don't forget to leave me a comment if you have any questions, And also leave me a comment with any other steps you want me to add to this process, or any other processes you want me to add to the fixed assets playlist. Thanks a lot for supporting the channel. Thank you for following the video. I hope it was easy to understand, and I will see you again soon.